Hey YouTube, how's it all going? I am back this time to follow up on some things from my last video, which was living with autism. So I hope all of you are well. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've done that video. Everything is going okay here. The weather has been on and off. Last week it felt like summer. It was literally in the 70s. Now this week it got cold again and feels more like winter, but today is in the 60s. So, March can be a very weird weather month. Warm weather comes, then next day it can be cold and warm again. So it's never consistent. So anyway, getting off the topic of that, I would like to discuss some things with you all about my last video. And there were some things in my last video that I didn't go into further depth into, and that is the point of this video. So, excuse me. First off, I wanted to talk to you all about the Oak Tree program, explain what it is, and how it helps students who are autistic. The Oak Tree program is an academic resource and support program run by BOCES. BOCES is a trade and vocational school that offers classes for students who want to learn a specialty, and it is also available to adults who want to go back and change their career. Like let's say they've done something for a long time and they want to change in their life. They have that option of going back to learn a trade, whether it's woodworking or criminal justice. BOCES has all kinds of programs for everyone. And it's not an expensive school to go to. It's not like a college where you have to pay tuition fees. It's just a trade school, that's all. Now, within BOCES are two programs for people with disabilities, PALS and Oak Tree. Oak Tree is more for people that are high-functioning autistic and who have Asperger's syndrome. PALS is more suitable for students who are more disabled and can't manage a regular high school. Now, just because a student can't manage a regular high school, it doesn't necessarily make them inferior to regular ed kids. They're just not equipped for that kind of education. I mean, they can still learn, they just learn differently. And the same applies to Oak Tree students too. However, the thing about Oak Tree, comparing it to PALS, is Oak Tree can be in a regular high school, whereas PALS is only in an alternative school. So they're very different in that regard. And PALS students don't typically take Regents courses that regular high school kids take. Now, Oak Tree kids, though, will. I've never been a PALS student, so I can't really say much about the program. Now, I have been around a lot of kids in that program, and I can kind of see the dynamic, how it shifts and it's different from Oak Tree, but not enough to really know the difference, because I'm an Oak Tree student, and I've been an Oak Tree student now since I was in the 7th grade. And I'm going to be graduating, so I've been an Oak Tree student for 7 years. And I've learned a lot from being an Oak Tree. So the way the Oak Tree program works is the student has an IEP, which is a document that stands for something very long, and it is Individualized Education Plan. Basically, in an IEP, it lists the student's needs, accommodations, like if they need extra time on test taking, but it's broken up into different components, like just general, like how the person is doing overall. There's social components, like if the student has speech services. Now, there are Oak Tree kids of all grade levels. The Oak Tree program is not just a high school based program, but it's also in middle schools and elementary schools. Speech in high school is a lot different than the speech in elementary school that we're all familiar with. Like in elementary school, you have speech therapy. It's to help a child with their pronunciation and their enunciating. But when you get to past middle school and into high school, it's a lot more generic. It's not so much speaking, like saying things right. It's more of a social component than anything else. Like, the speech therapist might work on social cues with the student, or unexpected versus expected behavior, So it's more of a social communication skill than an actual speech skill. It's also taking the skills that the kid has learned from elementary school and applying it to high school, stuff like that, and so on and so on and so on. So so when I was getting back to what I was saying, in an IEP, it lists a lot of information that even though it's about the student, it really benefits the teacher more because they can look at it and it helps them determine how they need to help make their students successful. Now, in the Oak Tree program, while it's a supportive program, it's really up to the students to help themselves become successful. The staff of the Oak Tree program, like the teachers, monitors, and aides, are there to guide a student, and to help them with whatever areas they're struggling with. But it's the students should really make strategies for themselves to be successful. So this is how the Oak Tree program works. Some Oak Tree classrooms are in an alternative setting, while others are in a regular school. The student has a resource room where they go to, but they take regular ed classes with the regular students. So they go to class, and then they have free mods, which are the same as study halls, and when the classes are over, they go back to their home-based mod to work on any assignments they have, and they have a homeroom teacher. Now, the roles of a homeroom teacher in the Oak Tree program are a lot different than what a regular teacher would do. Even though they are there to guide the student, all a homeroom teacher does is reinforces the concepts that the student's teacher is teaching to them to help them understand it better. Because kids with autism learn differently from the average person, and there's no right or wrong way to learn. It's like some people are visual learners while other people are auditory learners. I'm a visual learner myself. So basically, the homeroom teacher just explains the concepts better in case the student didn't get something or didn't understand something their teacher was teaching. That's why they have their homeroom teacher as a backup. Or if a student needs some more clarification on something, the homeroom teacher is there to provide that assistance to them. The aides and monitors in a homeroom class act as the assistants to students, like when the teacher is busy. Now, what an aide does is not necessarily the same as what a monitor does. They are similar, but they're also different. An aide works with a student more thoroughly, if that makes sense. They might assist a student with an assignment or help a student study for an exam. That's something an aide would do. A monitor is someone that watches all the students to make sure that they're safe and makes sure that they're going to wherever they need to go. But then sometimes what an aide does, a monitor can do. So it kind of shifts back and forth between the two job positions. The Oak Tree program also has life skills in the curriculum, which is a class that covers life skills. To be more specific, the teacher might cover areas such as finance, money management, which goes along with finance, social skills, personal skills, all kinds of practical things, cooking, baking. It's not always easy to cook though, because not all the high schools have a kitchen they can use to bake things, and cook things. The Oak Tree program is also big on fundraisers and community service projects, which I think is very beneficial to students because it gives them a sense of community and what they should do to improve society. And we raise money that way too, because at the end of the year, the Oak Tree program does their end of the year trip, which costs money. So how are we going to get that money? The answer is through fundraising and doing projects. We've done a Friendlies fundraiser, we've done a chocolate fundraiser where we sell chocolates. Not every student participates in it though. While the Oak Tree program is a wonderful program, it does have its drawbacks. Like, for example, it has the effect of making the kids stand out as being different to the regular ed kids. Because the regular ed kids, it all depends too on the high school that they're in or the school in general that they're in. Let's see. And not all kids, I should say regular kids, are down to earth with kids with disabilities. Not because they hate them and they're discriminating against them. It's just they don't really know how to open up to them. And it's not about being mean at all. And not only that, a lot of these schools that have the Oak Tree program, the regular ed kids don't also associate with the autistic kids because they don't have a history with them. Like, I go to school in a very small town, and the kids that I go to school with are kids that have known each other since kindergarten. So they have that history. Where I started late. I started when I was in the 7th grade, so I haven't been with them since childhood. So it does make it tough, and I'm not saying it's impossible to initiate friendships with regular ed kids when you're an Oak Tree student, but it's very difficult. Even if the kid is nice and not cruel, they're not going to be as open to you as they are with their friends. That's only human nature, because we're more outgoing with the people that we know and who have known us longer, and vice versa. The Oak Tree program, too, also has a way of sheltering the students. Like, they really emphasize the importance of social skills, because that's what most autistic kids struggle with the most. And it is very important, I agree, to teach a kid social skills, but they can go overboard with the guidelines, because, every social situation is different, and the person has to do what is right for them. I mean, there are guidelines as to what you should do in certain specific situations, but the Oak Tree program, though, just places way too much emphasis on, like, certain social situations, which kind of limits the individual in a way, because it doesn't make them think outside the box. But, there's good intentions for it, because, that the Oak Tree program has a purpose, which, what I said, is to enable kids with Asperger's syndrome and autism to grow up to be successful and happy citizens. Now, throughout our lives, we're always going to have difficulties. Doesn't matter whether they're autistic or not. People who aren't autistic have problems, I don't mean mental problems. I mean, like, financial problems, or sometimes problems getting into the right job. But when you're autistic, it's harder to deal with certain situations. So that's why the Oak Tree program is there to help kids find strategies to help themselves in a different situation. So, well, this is all I have to say for now. I hope all of you find this interesting, and I hope to be back on again soon. Bye-bye now.